Alongside Megatron, Wave 1 of Galaxy version included two Seekers. However, breaking from the traditional layout of these waves, Starscream was not in Wave 1, instead being reserved for Wave 2. Wave 1 included Thundercracker and Skywarp, the other two-thirds of the Command Trine. But now, we're able to complete the trio and see who wore this mold better. Much like Megatron, the idea of doing a Transformers line with no Seekers is almost unheard of at this point, especially when some of the most iconic Decepticons of all are Starscream, Thundercracker, and Skywarp. Their inclusion in the wave was to be expected. However, they were unique in Wave 1 as being the most intricate build, and even though there are far more complicated builds to come out since then, they're still amongst the most unique due to how their backpack comes together. And the colors do help to differentiate the trio. Keep in mind, there are two more Seekers also available only in the Brilliant series, Sunstorm and Acid Storm. The idea is that eventually there will be far more Seekers than even just these three, with the only way to differentiate them being colors and occasionally accessories. However, not all Seekers are created equal. Some undoubtedly look better than others. So let's go through this trio and see who truly was the best to get. As a mold, Skywarp is very impressive. Alongside all the other Seekers, he has a ball joint in the head, a ball joint in the shoulder, a swivel at the elbow including a hinge, a ball joint at the wrist, a swivel at the waist, a ball joint at the hip, a good hinge and swivel at the knee, and a ball joint at the foot. Just like his brothers, he is a very good toy to pose. Where Skywarp suffers is the deco options. Though many have often complained that Skywarp has become too purple in recent years, this Skywarp isn't purple enough. Aside from two small hits of lilac on the arms and the feet, he's an entirely black Seeker. What's even stranger is they've combined purples, using the dark purple of the toy on the shins and the wings, and the lilac in the arms and the feet, leaving the entire figure to look drab and rather uninteresting. If they had chose either purple, unified it, and then perhaps added purple to the shoulders and perhaps even the midsection, Skywarp could have been the best looking figure. It's long been joked that Skywarp is the most colorful and prettiest of the Seeker decos, so to see him come out as one of the least interesting of all of them is actually kind of heartbreaking, especially from a line like this. Thundercracker has no such issue. His deco is bold and beautiful throughout the entire body, and indeed, he is my favorite figure from Wave 1 of Galaxy version. He's larger than most of the other figures, and the deco alone makes him pop on the shelf. The brilliant blue, the slight hits of red, and the gray and black all work to make a great contrasting figure. The only issue with Thundercracker is one he shares with Skywarp, that being a very strange face. He has what you might call a cat mouth, which is to say very pursed lips. As a result, he can be a little bit strange on close inspection, but as it turns out, that was to be used for Starscream more so than for him. Starscream is one of the big four, which is to say the four Transformers most used in merchandising. It's him, Megatron, Optimus Prime, and Bumblebee. And even though at first it looks like he's identical to Skywarp and Thundercracker, he actually has much more deco and paint on him than his brothers have. To bring Thundercracker back in, you can see that not only do they apply paint to his crotch, there's also a little bit more gleam given to his cockpit, the wings have much bolder lines, and even the shins have a few extra coats of paint, adding to a little bit more surface detail. The most striking difference is the face. When you look at it, you see that not only does Starscream have an entirely new face sculpt to involve a wider mouth and a smirk, but they've changed the deco of the eyes, giving him what you would call a teardrop deco, tiny black lines coming down. It's used very often with eyeliner, it's considered a quote-unquote goth appearance, but it works for Starscream, bringing more attention to his eyes by contrasting them even harder with the gray of his face. It makes him look truly sinister and eye-catching, whereas Thundercracker's deco continues to just make his entire face look a little bit more blunt and, dare I say, boring. It was a great change. Much like Ironhide and Ratchet, it's a small change that makes a big difference to your mind's eye. The three have almost identical accessory loadouts, including the display stand, two splayed open hands, and two fists meant for holding guns. However, Starscream comes with an extra accessory, that being Megatron's gun mode. And even though the handle is very goofy, it's meant to accommodate the very large fists used by the Blokees. The gun mode can be held by any Blokees as they all share the same fist design. Even Megatron can hold his own gun mode. However, it's hard to argue that the traditional wielder of Starscream doesn't perhaps look the best using the gun, and it makes for this to be one of the most impressive trios in all of Blokees. Though Skywarp on his own is rather disappointing, him being paired with a wonderful Thundercracker and a truly excellent Starscream make for a wonderful Seeker trio, and one that could bring any Decepticon shelf together. I give a full recommend to these three, perhaps more so than even any of the Autobots aside from Jazz, due to just how wonderful they are as individuals and how amazing they are as a trio.